Joining me now is Dr. Egypt Iradia. She is a plant-based medical doctor, metaphysical wellness coach, and naturopathic doctor. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you.
I understand you're also a poet and creative, and I love that blend with wellness. That's partly what we do on the show. So I'm so glad you're here. Um,
Thank you.
so your mission is to empower people to live healthier, calmer, connected, and conscious lives.
Yes.
I love your mission statement. So how does food fit into that?
um, I think food fits in powerfully because how I see food, it goes very deep. So essentially, I see food as nourishment, and what we take into our bodies nourishes our minds, nourishes our physical body, nourishes even our spiritual or etheric bodies, and also feeds into our consciousness. So the kinds of foods we consume, it can play a big part in actually the energy we used to carry through in our life. So for me, it actually runs very deep than just like on the, superficial eating level.
Mhm.
So yes.
Yes, yeah, it's more than just taking in something. It's got a whole larger meaning around it.
Exactly.
So in this episode, we're talking about how can we make the foods that we enjoy, the foods that we like, a little bit healthier. But as we communicated for this interview, I saw there's really a lot more to that than just maybe making some healthier food choices or adding healthier ingredients. And you
Yeah.
mentioned several things I'd like to talk about today.
Perfect.
So, food preparation is definitely one of those things. So, if people want to make things a little healthier, what changes could they make in regard to food preparation?
For example, it's just being more conscious. For instance, of things like the oils that we use to prepare our foods. If we do use oils, just being aware of different ways we can prepare foods that can cut back on the oil. I mean, I'm not even talking about the quality of the oil. I'm going to get into that, but just the actual oil itself. So instead of if a recipe calls for deep frying, perhaps consider what I call oven baking the food. So
Mhm.
I do encourage plant-based eating, but even for people who aren't on a plant-based diet, rather than deep fry the chicken, perhaps bake it for a long period of time and use the oil like on the surface of it, and just it will take longer, but overall, it will be healthier because you've not like, completely soaked it in oil.
What are the types of oils people should choose for that?
One thing I would say, if possible, people should avoid a lot of these, I call them newer oils, that you see in more on the market. Things like safflower oil, things
Mhm.
like canola oil, which essentially canola oil in terms of the farming practice of it was essentially like a man-made hybridized type oil. When you look at our evolutionary biology, it's not an oil that like we've been exposed to for long periods of time.
Mhm.
I think when we introduce these new foods into our everyday eating or cooking practices, the body takes some kind of adjustment because genetically we're almost not fully wired to process that kind of oil. So just cutting down on these newer oils like safflower oil, canola oil, the research has shown that they're very inflammatory. So they encourage a lot of like inflammation. Essentially, a lot of chronic illness comes down to inflammation in the body, only at different sites.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right? So if
Yes.
you have inflammation in the brain, can give you brain fog. If you have inflammation in your digestive tract, you can have digestive troubles, bloating, aches and pains, cramping, things like that. So essentially, we want to reduce these more pro-inflammatory oils and maybe consider substituting them with healthier oils like the olive oil, the
Mhm.
coconut oil. That's a good choice.
What is food combining?
Essentially, different food types have different rates or speeds, if you like, at which they are broken down and digested and absorbed into the body, right? For example, we have fruits.
Mhm.
So fruits are very easy for the body to break down to digest and to absorb, in their final molecules into the body. They're the to be digested and absorbed, and they have a different almost composition of enzymes that are needed to break it down that the body produces. So if someone has a fruit salad, combination pineapples, banana, different things, that could be broken down within the body within like 30 to 40 minutes, fully absorbed, fully like broken
Oh,
down into
wow.
its final molecules.
Uh-huh.
But then if we take grains like complex starches, for example, let's say brown rice, even oatmeal, or like the root vegetables, the yams, sweet potatoes. Well, not so much sweet potatoes, but more like the potatoes, because sweet potato
Mhm.
actually is broken down rather quick. Those foods take a longer time for the body to break it down. They have a different, if you like, milieu of enzymes that are needed to break them down.
Mhm.
So they could take up to 2 hours
Oh,
when you,
wow.
and that's if I'm talking of mono meals, if you eat them on their own. But then most people, we don't have mono meals, we mix foods up.
Hmm.
So where the food combining comes into it is that, like, if you think of it, if you mix a food, it takes say 20 minutes to be maximally digested and absorbed. With a food, it takes 2 to 3 hours to be maximally digested and absorbed, and they're all in one meal sitting in your tummy. We're
Right.
giving the body a lot of work in terms
Hmm.
of it will need two kind of different enzyme subsets to break those foods. It will lead to some foods, for example, if you combine fruits with complex grains or starches, what happens is because the starches take a lot longer to digest, and the fruits have already almost been pre-digested and fully broken down, but they're being slowed down in terms of their absorption. Hence we get things like the part of the fruit not being like fully broken down. It starts to almost ferment.
Oh,
It's a
wow.
slow fermentation process. It ferments, and that leads to bloating, that leads to the feeling of brain fog after we eat certain foods because it's not fully digested. And so food combining just it's a lot of things in life in it, as well as eating, comes down to awareness. Just
We're talking about people making the foods they like healthier. How can they determine what to combine with what to be have the body be most efficient and get all the nutrients out of the food?
sure. So I would say there are a few ways. One, again, it comes down to the awareness, like to not make it too hard on yourself. I think everybody's given deep intuitive awareness, and
Mhm.
sometimes we have to just slow down and tap into that to actually listen to our bodies. Our bodies are always speaking. That's what I believe.
Mhm.
So if we have, say, a certain regular meal, say we have like, I don't know, mac and cheese, we like that and we have that often, just listen to your body. Like, do you feel, a few hours after 1 or 2 hours, do you feel enlivened? Do you feel sluggish? Do you feel brain fog? Do you feel like, oh, that was okay to digest? That in itself is an innate intelligence. Like I tell my
Mhm.
clients, you don't have to go to medical school. You don't have to be a physician to be able to read your body signals. These are
Mhm.
gifts from the divine that everyone can tap into when we have more awareness. So I would say awareness is one way.
Mhm.
Another thing, again, just kind of to really keep it simple, would be like when you have fruit, like a large fruit-based meal, try to have that on its own. So things like
Mhm.
combination fruits, like in smoothies, try to have that like away from, like, it's because I'm from the UK, so we have our traditional English breakfast, which is like eggs and cereal and fruit juice and bacon, which
Right. All
digestion,
together.
I
Yeah.
know, it's a
Yeah.
complete disaster.
A lot of
Brilliant.
cultures do that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Mhm.
yes, yes. So it's just that, like, perhaps if you do enjoy your morning juice or smoothie, maybe have that and then wait for an hour later to have the rest of your breakfast. If you are a breakfast person, some people are not.
Mhm.
So that would be one thing. And just to keep in mind that fruits take the least amount of time. I'd say the next up the ladder would be like complex carbohydrates and
Mhm.
starches. They take a couple more hours. So try and keep that together. But then you have things like carbohydrates that are present in vegetables, right?
Hmm.
You know, leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables, and what those are things like our cabbage, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower. Those actually combine quite well with grain. So things like pasta and rice can go well with those more starchy vegetables. They don't interfere too much with each other. So those can go well together. And leafy greens can actually be combined with fruits
Oh,
because, yes, the leaves are broken down much more quicker. So things like your lettuce can be thrown into your smoothie and it won't be a food combining mayhem, if you like. So those are just a
right.
couple of like ways or tips.
Uh-huh. Excellent. Well, this has been so enlightening. Thank you so much. How can people get in touch with you?
Thank you. Well, all my information can be found through my website, which is www.manifestingalchemy.com. There I have like my different healing offerings and other things with my creative work and things that I do.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining me here today, Dr. Egypt.
Thank you, Wendy. I really appreciate the work that you are putting out there. I've checked through your material and I really appreciate what you're doing and offering to the world.
Oh, thank you. It's my honor and pleasure. Thank you
Thank
again.
you.